The heat is still on.
Massive game.
New Zealand to win.
Great kick.
Been a terrible year for the Wallabies.
We're missing an injection of life.
Stupid guys think they're so good.
Hello and welcome to RuggaMatrix International, episode 254. I'm your host, Jero Sen. This is Ben Kimber. Hey, Ben.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Big weekend.
Big weekend, mate. Couple of tests. I don't think it was the greatest weekend of rugby, but we'll get it out in a minute.
Yes, Ben, and of course, as always, during this period, the Rugby Championship Fantasy Competition is sponsoring RuggaMatrix. And Ben, how are you travelling with it?
I've slipped, mate. My perch.
Slipped.
The crown has slipped. I've dropped.
It's great to see so many of our viewers and listeners jumping on board, and the Rugby Championship Fantasy team brought to you by RugbyPass, the great fellas there. If you want to watch rugby around the world or rugby league around the world online, and you can't find it anywhere else. Thanks to the guys at RugbyPass. Plenty to talk about. Let's get straight into it. Benny, what is your strike issue of the week?
Okay, mate, solid win to the All Blacks, not as dominant as we thought. Draw, which leaves everyone feeling a little bit what's doing about the Wallabies Springboks game. But the piece of news that came out, and I've seen people talking about it, and I think we have to talk about it because we've mentioned it in the past, but the strike issue of the week for me is Beauden Barrett, who was the 2016 Player of the Year as the All Blacks 5'8", is he the best 5'8" in the world? Is he the best 5'8" in the All Blacks squad? Because I'm not too sure anymore. We've said for some time that he doesn't hold a candle for me to Dan Carter. And I think in some of these games where teams work out ways to get pressure on, Beauden Barrett can be found out a little bit. Now, let's be clear, you'd take him in a heartbeat for the Wallabies or for elsewhere because he is a fantastic player. But is he their best option at 5'8"? I'm thinking no.
Well, that's a big question. So all of you All Black fans, addressed to Ben Kimber at... I won't give away your email address. Big call, mate. Clearly didn't have the best night with the boot the other day. I still think he's New Zealand's best option at 10 at this point. But I am a big fan, as you know, of Damian McKenzie. A bit of talk about him moving into that fly half role as well. Way too early. I was pretty happy with the highlights I saw anyway of McKenzie at the back. But I've got to say, look, we've been talking about his goal kicking for a while, haven't we? And maybe it's time to take the pressure off him, find someone else to take the goal kicking. Would that help?
Well, I think one of the things that you and I talked about briefly pre-show that we want to get into is that coach's loyalty. You know, like clearly Barrett can be an up and down kicker. You know, we've got our own up and down kicker in Bernard Foley, but he can struggle at times with kicking, and that was very evident on the weekend. Now, the real key point I want to make about Barrett is people saying, you know, he is one of the world's best players. Absolutely, he is. But in the structure that Hansen has now, and I'm meaning particularly with Ben Smith on sabbatical, I think a better option would be Sapawanga at 5'8", and that showed on the weekend. I think Barrett would play a natural fullbacks game and play a world's best fullbacks game in the absence of Smith. That would better balance their back three, and Sapawanga has shown he's got the touch that I think could do more for them at 5'8". And the way that those guys play, they can switch them in and out as well. Barrett, to me, looked like a guy who it was playing the way he wanted the game to be as opposed to the way the game was actually playing out. The Argies turned up. They did what they did in the last year that we haven't seen enough of, but they really had a game plan and they came at the All Blacks. That one off the ruck and maybe one further out, hitting hard, big bodies running into those guys on their shoulders and making yards. And the pressure, Barrett doesn't perform as well under the pressure. I think in the absence of Smith, I'd be putting Barrett back to fullback. I'd be playing Sapawanga at 5'8", and I'd have Ioane and Milner Scudder on the wings.
All right. Yeah, it's a... excuse me a second, Betty. It's a big call. Our live stream sort of dropped out, so I've got to play along as we go. The thing about, as we all know, 10 and 15 generally are interchangeable. Not everyone can play forward and not everyone can move back with great ease, but I think Barrett could do it quite easily. I still think when it comes down to it, we often talk about his goal kicking first, so I just think if you take the pressure of goal kicking off him, and I don't know who that is.
But how hard is that for a coach to do, right? A coach picks a team and they back the guy. And we can see Bernard Foley's getting backed, right, consistently for things like goal kicking and kicking to the line. Even when you got Reece Hodge on there, Foley was still doing kicking to the line. I think coaches sometimes will struggle with that loyalty versus what might be best for the team. But they also sometimes have a longer term view than we do game to game to say, how would you actually switch this team up to get them better? So for me, You've said Mackenzie. I wouldn't have Mackenzie anywhere near the 5'8" role. I do not think he's an international 5'8". I think he's an adequate international fullback, but I think the balance of the team with Smith gone would be better served with Barrett back there at fullback. And, you know, look, it is easy to get into this game and say the ABs, look, they scored 6 tries to 1, 39-22. It was not in doubt. It was tight until the 60th minute mark. The ABs finished it off. We'll talk about the big Vaea Fifita debut in a minute. So it's hard to rip into them at all. They are still a dominant team. They are still a winning team. But people are talking more like they are beatable after that Lions series. They're talking more about what their flaws can be. So Hanson's got to be saying, how can he make this team function to their absolute best? And I think their absolute best has been more when we see Barrett go back to the fullback role, and particularly when we saw Sopawanga come on, who's got nice hands. And I think there was a good piece by Mark Rees and a couple of the guys shared in the NZ Herald, I think, that talked directly about that. So there's a balance there that I think would be better served. That said, you know, there's the guys that weren't out there make a difference. And I found that really interesting too, the way that Hanson, who we talk about loyalty and the way you want players to feel about themselves, Hanson's directly coming out and saying the service will get sharper when Smith comes back, when Aaron Smith comes back at 9 for TJ. That's a rough call on TJ, who is a fantastic scrum half. So to call that out as an issue, it felt to me like there was a very defensive post-match performance by Hanson for Barrett. His goal kicking absolutely jumps in for him, and then calls out Smith as going to be providing more of a key, which may well be right, to the game improving. But that really was looking after Barrett for me.
Yeah, I noticed that on the weekend. The post-match press conference, Hanson, he had a little bit of checker about him.
Ooh,
and
a bit of checker, that is a
little
big
bit
call.
of checker. So he was a bit critical of the media for not giving Beauden Barrett credit when he kicked the goals, and then laying it into him when he missed the goals. And it's a bit how I talk about, you know.
That's like checker saying, you get stuck in us when we lose. Well, we get stuck in you when you lose, and we call it out when you miss the kicks.
Yeah, no, but he's saying he's not getting praised when he gets all the kicks as well.
Oh,
so he reckons you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
And look, I understand that from the coach, but I just think he lost his biscuit a little bit, the big fella. So I think that it sort of got to him a bit, and maybe it's getting to him a little bit, just on the edges there. Things aren't absolutely right with the All Blacks. They're a great side and they keep winning. There's no doubt about that. And they still smoked. Let's not get too carried away with Los Pumas. They were smoked in the end. But I think just after the match, the big fella probably needed to get his biscuit back in place, because he did lose it a little bit. And it was interesting, wasn't it? I just thought that he was looking for praise for Beauden Barrett when he performed well, because he didn't like the fact he got criticised when he was missing kicks. So, I think there's something to that. There's something that I think he's feeling the pressure this year like he's never felt it before. Yeah,
it's interesting, and you can see that the All Blacks are still winning, and they still, look fantastic, bringing in guys like Fifita. But the tone of other people around the world, Eddie Jones led this to say that there are vulnerabilities. Mate, I don't know, Alistair Coatsey said something this week, and he used to give out some wild quotes previously. I used to think, what's going on with that bloke? This week he said, I don't see any weaknesses in the All Black side. I think they are vulnerable, but you still have to be your best to exploit that. Well, how does that make sense? I don't see any weaknesses, but I think they are vulnerable. Look, I don't think they are vulnerable as a team right now, as much as some might suggest. Let's be frank, there were 6 or 7 blokes who should have been out there for them that weren't when they played this Argentinian side. Those guys are all going to come back in for the box. They're going to make a big difference. But the side still is finding its way around with some key changes. Said Mackenzie, I don't think, is the guy for them. Barrett to fullback, Sapawanga to 5'8", Ioane back on the wing, Milner Scudder, and a couple of those big boys back up the front. I think they'll be very, very hard to beat. But it's really interesting to see the way that Hanson is going to manage this change, particularly with blokes like Smith stepping out, and how he manages this team through the rest of the Rugby Championship. Particularly if, as some of our viewers say, now's the time that he should be checking out how he should, towards the World Cup, who's going to come through like your Fifitas.
All right, so I think enough on the All Blacks, because we've got to talk about Fifita.
We've got to talk about the game. We haven't talked about the game enough.
No, but I've got to talk about the Pumas, because we sort of ignored them a bit there.
Yeah.
But I think the Los Pumas, we talked about them, that they either had to come to the game and pull off a really close loss, and they were getting there, and they performed all right for the typical 50, 60 minutes, but that's when the All Blacks sort of blew them away off the park after that. But they did show some impressive moments, and they're a very clever team. I think they often come with a little bit of a clever game plan, and they're happy to take the points when they present to them too.
Yeah. Well, we even saw a drop goal from them, which is a couple of attempts and one went over. Look, I think Argentinian coach is clearly a guy who is a reasonable tactical coach. But what we hadn't seen this year, what we saw from them against the All Blacks, they brought the game that they brought last year that was effective at times. They played with pace. They played around those fringes. They hit it up one wide, close in around the rucks, and they moved the ball fast with big bodies. Creevy had a massive game. Their big second rowers got involved. And we saw signs of an Argentinian team that was better last year, but maybe they're finding their way again this year. And there's players to like in there. Cubelli, as you guys know from if you follow me through the Super Rugby season, big fan of Cubelli. I like him as a player. Buffelli on the wing. Those massive penalty goals, just unbelievable. So lots to like about the Argies. And early on, they were putting pressure on. The ABs were forced to infringe. Beauden Barrett got a yellow card. Kieran Reid should have been close to a yellow card with a couple of his very cynical penalties inside the 22 as the Argies were on the front foot. But in the end, far too much firepower. And if you're going to talk about firepower, what about Vaea Fifita? I mean, Kano, through his own personal life, goes out of the squad, and Squire steps out for a rest, even though you're like, come on, mate, he's your backup. What's he having a rest for? In comes Fifita, clearly a guy that Hansen said, I want to have a look at him. Massive,
got a good look at him.
Big knees, and that tries and the runs were just fantastic. And it actually felt like he brought something to this All Black side that they haven't shown for me, in that they're such a well coached and structured side and they run well together. But he brought a wildness. Like, he wound up and he just went. And he ran at top speed and just let the knees fly and had a red hot crack, and I thought that was exciting to watch.
He actually reminds me in the running style of Andrew Fifita, who plays rugby league for the Cronulla Sharks in New South Wales and Australia. In Australia, he was fantastic, and I think the brilliant thing is, and you look at Australia how it struggles to find that back row balance, and the All Blacks, they just say, well, let's give this other guy a go, and away they do. And he was good, and they needed him too. It was actually, not only did Hansen need a look at him, but they needed him on the night because he really transformed some of the All Blacks' attack. Yeah,
and particularly when they said Argies were physically getting into that All Blacks backline to be able to get someone on the front foot to really thump them. I thought, great debut. Debut for the ages, really, for a starting player like that.
All right, what else about the game did you pick up, Benny?
I didn't pick up what Jimmy Kipp, I think, said to us on YouTube, which was, let's have a check out of the All Blacks tackling. The tackling technique, which we thought was a great piece. Are they tackling low, and that's why concussions come in? I didn't pick that up. Did you see any of that?
No, I didn't get to see the whole game because I was coming back from Melbourne. So I watched the AFL on Friday night. 95,000 people at the MCG for a club grand final. Sorry, qualifying final. Yeah. Fantastic stuff. But in terms of seeing those details, I don't think there were too many concussions or HIAs, were there, during the game?
No.
So that means that there probably wasn't that much contact. You know what? I think we should go back to that other test match against Australia and have a closer look at that. And maybe they changed a bit, Yep. They're pretty smart guys, so they would have worked out that, look, we got too many, while we're getting too many head knocks, they may have changed. But it was a great point. Thanks for Jimmy for pointing it out, and we appreciate that feedback. Very smart audience we've got.
So two last points for me on that game.
Yep.
One was, I talked about Barrett, but to me it was a very poor game from him. Those chip kicks that he kept going for, he kept pulling out these little chip kicks and trying them on inside his own 22. He's hoisted one across right to the sideline, that didn't quite find its mark. He looked, as I said, like a guy who was playing the game he wanted to play, not the game that was in front of him. Now, one final note too is Dane Coles doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders the way he has. He's getting around the park and he's getting involved, but he's not having the influence since he came back from his head knock. So one to watch there to see how Dane Coles pulls it together as the Boks come knocking on their door. Yeah,
look, he's obviously been through some doubts as a player, and that there's got to be a ramification for that. So I'm not surprised that it's had an impact on him. It may be another reason, but let's just hope he gets back to that unbelievable form, because It's just a joy to watch.
He's going to need a new front row combo too. Some front row carnage going
on.
on.
They've lost a few players, haven't they?
Moody's gone now too, and he's been on fire. He's been looking fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Not enough fantasy points for Moody Rugby Pass, guys. I've had him in my team, and not enough points. He's been looking great, but he's now gone, joining Franks on the sideline. So Crockett's got to come in there, you would think. But also the Boks have lost Uesthuizen. So some fresh faces that have got to come in there for the Boks and the All Blacks in the front row, which is going to be a key matchup.
All right, so that's it?
Yep.
All right, so victory to the All Blacks over Los Pumas. The All Blacks remaining undefeated. So right at the top of the table of the Rugby Championship. The other battle in Perth was a sea of blue in Perth for Australia and South Africa. And obviously the Western Force fans were pretty upset about what the ARU did to them, cut them out of the competition. But they were on their best behaviour. I didn't think through the TV, the atmosphere didn't really come through to me. If you're at the ground, please tell us what it was like. But it just didn't seem to be oozing atmosphere. But in the end, it was a draw, Ben, between Australia and the Springboks. What do you think? It
was, and like it had a certain intensity because it was close. You know, seesawing game, different teams in front. I thought it wasn't a fantastic game.
No. I didn't like it at all, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't a fantastic quality game, but then again, I didn't think the AB's Argies was a fantastic quality game either.
No.
It wasn't a weekend of top-notch rugby. It was always watchable. The Wallabies, to me, would probably feel good they got close and had a draw. Michael Checker seemed to keep the mouth button a bit after the game. But like, I didn't think they went well. I mean, we've talked, you know, you have to say one thing.
Yeah.
Nathan Gray at least appears to have worked out with the team the way they want to play defensively.
Yep.
He said he'd fix it quickly, and you've got to give him some kudos. They're not getting shredded, and they're not looking as aimless as they were in the first Bledisloe.
Yep.
So Gray, you know, good on him for saying, you know, he was going to get stuck in and turning it around. But across the park, the rest of the Wallabies game, they're relying too much on individual brilliance. They're not getting enough punch. They got beaten at the ruck. That was incredibly obvious. You know, the Boks came in, you said it last week,
yep.
Physical game. The Boks at the ruck dominated, but it wasn't just the ruck. It was the restarts, it was the line-out, it was the scrum.
Yeah.
All around the park, all the areas that you want the forwards firing in, the Wallabies struggle.
Yeah, and Ben, they're the things you should be proud of, or your set-piece work. So the fact that the Wallabies are still competing while being so poor at set-piece and being poor at the breakdown is astounding. And that's just a lot to do with guys like Hooper in the loose and blokes like Kurtley Beale when they get a chance to carve up. Just on the breakdown too, I just want to absolutely clarify here, it's not just about the brutality of the Springboks, it's their strength man on man. So I reckon you could freeze frame 100 of those rucks and you'd see, Ben, one Springbok to about 3 Australians. And that just automatically stuffs up everything because you just don't have those spare players on hand. So they were able to control rucks with just one player, and or 2 at the most, or maybe 3. Anyway, they have the ability to do that, and then it just kept going from there. Like the line out, you know, Tatafu's fantastic in the loose and smashes guys, and better in the scrum than Moore, but you know the line out's not reliable, and it's killing Australia as well.
Yeah. Look, and that was what was disappointing. To me, it was almost like they went backwards a little bit. Not almost like. They did. From the game they put on the park against the All Blacks, they went backwards.
So did South Africa, by the way.
Yeah, South Africa also. The thing about South Africa was they kept some reasonable structure in their forwards, but they didn't chance their hand at all. Now, I saw Kirsty at halftime even say these tactics were going to play it a bit tighter. I think he did. So it sounds like instruction, but going back into their shell, the Boks lost a fair bit of what they'd had the previous few weeks. Peter Steph Tutoy had a massive game in the middle. He went straight through the guts of the Australian ruck at least twice. So not just the strength he brought, but the awareness. He really tore them up. Jaco Creel on the side, good. Khaleesi, not quite the game that he's had previously, and I think when the ball wasn't moved around as much, he probably didn't get the chances that he would normally get to play a more active role. But the Boks, they did not play the game we've seen in the previous 5 tests from them with a bit more energy, a bit more width, and feeding off that forward play they can get, they seemed a bit more stuttery. And in Yantis, I was waiting for Yantis to fail, to be honest, in the Bok 10 jersey. He didn't, but whether he's going to be the right man going ahead, still a question mark for me.
I think overall they didn't play the game intelligently at the end. They had a chance to really nail it, even though it was tied up, but to get in position for a drop goal right towards the end of the game. And And I don't know what they were thinking, but both sides didn't have intelligent games. They sort of did things but there was no smart play.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of play in the Wallaby Springboks game. It felt like a game that was really just sort of a tight tussle, and it didn't put on a great spectacle.
Tight tussle between two teams that really didn't know how to win the game. And once again, the Wallabies get to a lead and then they get hauled in. So why is that? Are they relaxing? What do you think's going on there? Or are we reading too much into it?
Look, I think your point right was about the two teams which didn't know how to win, right? They both, I think, went in their shells a bit and wanted to just punch it out as opposed to play the games they might want to play. But you've got to look at that Wallaby team and the amount of set-piece areas that they got wrong.
Yeah.
They are clearly either not well drilled or their heads still aren't right, because it was a poor performance. And they did well to burgle, and absolutely burgle, I think, a draw there at the finish. Hannigan giving away the penalty that got the Boks back into it.
Yeah. So the other thing about the game that I thought was that South Africa came to Australia in pretty good nick, but somehow fell away, and I think it's because Australia can, when they lift in defence, cause that to happen. So I'm just trying to put my finger on why South Africa really sort of lost their way a bit, because they had been showing promise and backing each other. And it took quite a while for them to sort of get into the groove. I don't know, mate. What do you think?
Oh, look, I think it's one of those hard ones. Like we've seen a lot better from them in 5 tests this year. The camaraderie, the approach, the throwing it around. Slightly slippery night in Perth. Feeling the pressure of stepping up again from France into Argentina, into the Wallabies. And it sounded like their instructions were to play it tight. So, in the end, just the team that didn't put on the park what we know they can, or we hope they can, if the Boks are back. It'll be interesting if they get a good track over in New Zealand. All
right, so I've been critical about Michael Hoop in the past as a captain, and he's done some courageous things, like his chase to prevent a try was enormous, but he's sort of playing like a three-quarter, like a centre, and he's not playing tight enough for me as a loose forward, but he's not playing the game that Australia needs, and that's indicative of the ball being lost at the breakdown as well. We need more of a. Australia needs more of a presence there.
Yeah, look, the back row was poor. I think Hannigan is not showing impact. Like he was still running hard, towards the 80th minute, but physically he is not showing the impact you want from a 6.
Why is Cheika persisting with him, mate?
Well, and letting Scott Fardy get away. Let's get on that bucket again.
Don't start that one again.
McMahon also was a bit anemic. Didn't really get much done on the park after doing well the previous week, and Hooper cops some flack, and I don't think he should. Hooper plays a certain type of game, right? But thank God for Michael Hooper in the Wallabies jersey. Like the effort he puts in and the ground he covers, he is not the same sort of number 7 as Jarko Kriel. He's not the same sort of 7 as a David Pocock. You want you would love a back row where his ticker is in there, but he's balanced by a big unit who can actually drive the ball up. Tamani's probably going to get a show back in there, but someone who also gets over the ball and disrupts things a bit more and plays a bit tighter. And we don't have that balance for him now, and it's to his detriment. But we've got to say thank God we've got him. I mean, that run back down on Serfontaine, that was fantastic.
Yeah, he's not an easy guy to run down. The Springbok centre. So the thing about that is Australia's obviously still got issues with kicking. I thought Foley's general kicking was a little bit better, but obviously still got issues there. And his goal kicking was better as well. But it's that 10 and 12, the Beale-Foley combination that to me I think is just too small. And I like Kirtley as the playmaker. I've always said that he should be Australia's long-term fly half, but he needs to own that position, and he's sort of mixing it up a bit and playing a bit of ad-lib football that's getting Australia out of trouble. It's whether or not he can come back and say, okay, I need to structure this more and make sure Australia's playing better and get more responsibility with kicking the ball and turning the opposition around. That's to me the big decision. And I know, Benny, you've been obviously critical about Foley, but I think that the time has come where he's got to make a call.
Look, I think Beale is playing himself into the 5/8 jersey, and you've touched on it there. Not just in the way that he's getting involved in the game, but the decisions he's making, some of the kicks he's putting in to take the pressure off. He is playing himself to me into that playmaker's role, and I think the sooner he gets there, the better for me. You know, I said, I appreciate what Foley can do. He's got too many flaws for me to give us a consistently good game. Beale's showing that he has less flaws. He's got more opportunity to take that on. So I think, you know, Beale there. The other guy who I liked on the field is Hodge. You know, you talk about these teams who might struggle at times, and we saw the lack of ticker in Sydney. Hodge, to me, I love the lines he runs. He runs hard, he runs straight. He brings a big boot. Dane Hallett-Petty is a massive loss for the season. His positional play and the way he, you know, kept the back moving. But Hodge somewhere in there, Beale to 5'8". I think Checker needs to keep trying and checking out what he can do with this team. But I wonder whether that draw would make him feel a bit more comfortable.
All right, let's move on, mate. Do you want to make our picks for this week out of the 2 tests?
Look, it's tough picking early in the week because last week, you know, picking the ABs by 30, I didn't know the extent of which they weren't going to pick their full strength side. So, you know, we might have trimmed that back a bit. Still would have tipped the ABs.
And actually, it's very hard based on the previous week's form because, as the second Bledisloe told us, you just can't pick it.
Yeah.
So it is going to be interesting. The great Mark Cashman, a former co-host of the show, said to me that the Wallabies might be in a bit of trouble this week.
Yeah, he likes the Argies.
And I got to agree with him. We don't match up. Australia doesn't match up well against Argentina. So I've sort of got a niggling feeling that this could be one for Argentina to win. I can't 100% say it, but I would not be surprised to see Argentina beat Australia.
Well, I tell you, look, if the Wallabies bring that lack of nous around the ruck that the Springboks clearly took over, that was where Argentina took on the All Blacks and took them on well. That's what Argentina has done well. Creevy and those guys hammering around that ruck area could be real trouble for the Wallabies. I think you've got to shift Hannigan out. And the bench isn't strong enough too. We're not seeing enough from the bench. You're not feeling like you're getting enough. The Robertsons in the front row. The front row's a real worry. The RG scrum hasn't looked like it's been too fantastic so far. No. But without Kepu and Tatafu, our scrum is not going well at all either.
Oh, no.
I think the Wallabies will get them. I think the RGs aren't showing enough consistency. They've lifted for the All Blacks. Whether they can now move down to Canberra and do it again, I doubt. I think the Wallabies should get them there.
Yeah, Wallabies should win, but don't be surprised. The other test match, there's nothing like playing New Zealand to shock you back into your best form. And I think that will happen for South Africa this week. They'll sort of, you know, get together and, to use the old circle the wagons term, they'll be ready to fire against the All Blacks. Whether that's enough to beat them, I don't know, but they certainly have the athleticism, the strength, and the firepower to do it if they really aim up. I think this could be a cracker of a test match.
Yeah, look, I think the All Blacks, I think they will win this one, not comfortably, but with a gap. I don't think it will be close. I don't think it will be down to the wire. I think the Boks have had a great lead up to meeting the All Blacks through the French Test Series, through Argentina, to step up to the Wallabies. But I think that Wallabies game showed they aren't quite there yet. They're a team that shows plenty of potential and they've got plenty of growth in them. But I think the All Blacks, bringing back, you know, have a look who's coming back. Smith, Whitelock, the list goes on and on. Ioane, Crotty. That team, when they get back to full strength, I think are going to be too strong still. And I don't think it will be that close. I think 10, 12 points. But again, at least, but I'd like to see the teams.
All right. We've got to keep moving, mate.
Yep.
So we're into...
Do you want to check a watch? It was pretty quiet on check a watch front this week.
Yeah, all right. So check a watch.
Not too much to say other than how calm he was in a drawn press conference after that game. So not too much to say about Checker other than let's keep an eye on his selections. Said, is he going to persist with Hannigan? Is he going to try and bring some more meat into that back row? Is he going to try and play with his back line at all? I don't know. He did switch out Kane Douglas out of the squad and bring in Luka Ntui, so he looks like he's bringing that youth through, but I don't know. That's all we're going to keep an eye on him.
All right, so that's it for Checker Watch. Now, do you want to go on to comments or onto your Rugby Pass fantasy team?
Look, very briefly on fantasy, mate, but for me,
Yes, mate.
I forgot to update my team last week.
Sorry, me too.
Slipped to fourth, though. I only slipped to fourth. It was a very low-scoring round. Not a lot of the players...
Who's on
top? I've forgotten.
Oh,
okay.
Right.
But not a lot of the players actually scored a huge number of points. Even guys that scored tries, I think it was a low-scoring fantasy round. This week, I'll make sure I get my team set and ready to roll. I'm going to take that number one spot back.
All right, yeah. So I think you're pretty much stuck with that team that you had at the start, aren't you? If you made good decisions then and just making the right tweaks. Anyway.
Yeah, like I didn't change my team, so I had 4 All Black players who weren't even in the 23 in my starting
All
team.
right, you've said it once, mate. All right. Okay.
Just letting you know, mate. Just letting you know.
Okay. Excuses. You're starting to sound like Michael Checker after a game.
I'll get out of it.
All right. So let's move on to some of our viewer comments. Yeah.
Yep.
We've got to move straight onto that and finish up the show because we're moving on. So it's been fantastic. The comments on YouTube lengthy and incredibly detailed and very intelligent in terms of the game. And we want to dive into and reply to everyone at some point, but thank you for doing that. Also an email, we do get a number of emails through on admin@RuggaMatrix.com, so if you want to do that and not share it immediately publicly, you can do that. And of course, Benny, Facebook, always alive and pumping.
Yeah. And we get some messages on Facebook and that too. Guys, if you're going to share something with us, I'd love you to share it publicly as well. Because it's great to see the stories and things you share. Please post them on the RuggaMatrix Facebook page.
All right, so you've got a few people who want to shout out.
I did. There were some really good comments, and I wanted to highlight a few of them. A few of our regulars and a few new faces who came in and gave us some really good insight. Casey Mateen, I'm on a Facebook at the moment. Brian Knight had a good chat around the back row. Mark Moody, a really good post talking about the Wallabies Springboks game compared to the NZ one, about how much rugby was played in each of those games, which I thought was a great post and spot on. Leon Parra, as usual, was talking about Fifita. James Walker, a really nice post talking about Hannigan and Tamati, the changing out there, and Robertson he mentioned as well. Spot on, James, with a couple of those players who do not look like they're up to it. Falau potentially to the wing. Kia Martin, who last week picked Beauden Barrett to fullback with Milner Scudder and Ioane. I'm right on board with your Kia there, and he had some great support on YouTube. Martin Cameron, a Kiwi who was talking about how disappointed he was the force that was gone. And Jay Paul on YouTube, who was backing me up on Tuungafasi and saying that he's not the answer for the All Blacks up front. Awesome YouTube post by Peter Clark, who went through the 9 steps that he thinks that players need to look at themselves and the coaches. Eat Your Meats on YouTube talked about that as an All Black supporter, he would be begging the ARU to get rid of the force because he thinks it'll be to Australian rugby's detriment. Off the Cuff Gaming was in there. Jimmy Kipp we mentioned through the show. And finally, a shout out to Andrew Walker, who asked me to mention his niece's fiancé, Graham Hogg, who's the Youth Development Officer at West of Scotland RFU, who had a great first win for the first 15 on the weekend. It looks like they got up 29-25.
That's not like the Andrew Walker, is it?
No.
Great
one
name.
more.
Good rugby name.
Inamar Matamu, who he put a couple of good posts up on a couple of different topics, but the one I was looking at here was WA. And Colin Townsend out of SA. Sorry, I did have a couple more there.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Colin, too.
Colin always puts some good quality quotes up.
Yeah, very good poster. All right, Ben, that's about it. So if you are joining the live stream, it crapped out on us, so we've been doing this show offline.
It's a bit jumpy tonight.
Yeah, so
the show and the feed.
Unfortunately, only had a few minutes that actually went out onto the internet live. Benny, thanks for joining us, mate, and we look forward to see if the Springboks can topple the All Blacks and Los Pumas go to Canberra.
Home sides for me.
Home sides. All right. There is Ben Kimber. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks for joining us on RuggaMatrix International. Don't forget you can see us on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you want to download us on iTunes to listen to audio as well, please do that. And leave a comment there as well. That would be nice. Until next week, enjoy your rugby. And don't forget, post and share, do all that sort of stuff. See you next week.